Welcome. Happy Friday, or whenever you're listening to this. It's Friday for me when I'm recording this. And I just had so many things on my heart, and I love just jumping on when things are really present for me and just sharing a transmission, really just channeling it. Not even, I don't have any notes prepared. If you're new to me, my name is Elle Davis, and I am a channel healer, transformational mentor that specializes in future self embodiment so you can heal forward and have the life that you really dream of. This week, well, first of all, if you haven't watched my Soulcast and Energy Report, go check it out. There is just so much astrology happening. And I look at it just from the big energetic themes of how you can really dance with the energy instead of resisting it or feeling overwhelmed or bowled over by it. It's really a way to support you. And I've noticed a level of exhaustion this week. I've actually had these spurts of feeling really inspired and as if I can feel all these new things happening. And then on the other hand, feeling a sense of just being really tired. I had a day yesterday where my mind wanted to do things, but my body was like, hey, sister, let's rest. And so I always trust the timing of my body. It's taken me so long to get to that point, but I know, and I'm curious if you've experienced this. If you honor your body, and let's say you have a day where maybe you rest a little bit more, you're not creating new things, or you're just kind of like going with the flow, then maybe the next day, like if you give yourself that opportunity to rest and recharge, and then the next day it's like you get that kind of energy flowing again. So I happen to be doing Richard Rudd, which is the Gene Keys, if you're not familiar with it, his Sages Retreat. Check it out. I'm not an affiliate. I should be because I'm one of their, on their guides list and all that stuff, but it's a 14-month process. We're in the second month of it. And right now we're contemplating the evolution sphere, which is your challenge in your life. And I listened to mine when I was really tired yesterday. I sat and I listened to it, his contemplation of that one a couple times. And that's what I want to share with you today is not so much about my specific gene key and or the gene keys in general, but what it elicited from me. So this is one of those things where no matter what, just like the astrology, the gene keys, there's 64 of them. You have those archetypal energies that exist within you. And I'm super excited because I have a podcast coming out with All Within, which is I was interviewing one of my dear friends, Ashley, who is an expert in the gene keys. So when that comes out, I'll let you guys know. But anyways, we have all these archetypal energies. And so the one that I was studying yesterday happens to be this shadow frequency of superficiality to presence through the pathway of self-assuredness. And I have listened to some of these gene keys over since 2017, and I hear something different every single time. It always fascinates me. I'm like, wow, oh my gosh, how did that not land before, but it's landing now? Well, it's because of consciousness, right? Where our consciousness is always shifting and you'll pull from it exactly what you need, right? And that would happen with any really good book or transmission that you're listening to. And so, anyways, it had me really reflecting on this superficiality. So, superficiality is not maybe what you think, it's more about the addiction to busyness and also living in fear and being in survival and how that takes you out of your body. It's like you're absent from life. So, it was really about being present or absent and how that impacts your life. And I was listening and I was like, God, I've done both in my life. I've done both. So I used to be someone who, in my younger years, 20s, 30s, I would, at any given time, I would be like talking to like 20 different people on the phone, like during the week. This is even before texting. I know texting was there, but like I was always talking on the phone. I was an outside sales rep. I was going from office to office, all these doctors' offices, just a social butterfly, like crazy social butterfly, and just going in my life. And I would keep myself so busy that I oftentimes didn't go into the depths of who I was. Like I've always been wildly passionate and feeling, but I didn't always allow myself to access those parts. So I'm curious if you're listening to that, if you can relate to that. Where it's almost like you're skimming the surface of something, right? You're not allowing yourself to fully go in. And I'm not saying my whole life was like that, but I can easily see that there was a lot of times where I was living like that. Very, very busy. So if you're that busy, and I talk with women who are, CEOs of companies. One of my most recent clients I'm working with, she is running a multi-million dollar company. She's the founder, and she's so busy that she can't even hear herself think, and she wants to create something different. So I was telling her, I'm like, you can't create new things when you're going a million miles an hour. You have to be able to hear your intuition and slow down, which goes against, right? Like if you're addicted to busy. So something I want you to think about is like, why are you addicted to busy? Like, is it the atta girl? Like, oh my gosh, like I feel like if I'm not productive, that I'm not worthy, I'm not, or I'm worthless, or what is the programming behind that? Because if you can start to identify the programming and the coping mechanisms, for me, well, one, I was an Energizer bunny, like for reals. Like I had so much energy. And then the other thing was that I just wanted to stay so busy and just keep going because I don't think I knew how to be with myself. I didn't have the capacity to like really sit with the bigger feelings and emotions. So I lived like that for a long time. And then my other default mode, which is in this gene key in the shadow, is being absent because let's say let's talk about the autonomic nervous system, fight, flight, freeze, fawn. So if you're someone who is in fear a lot and then you go into a survival mode, there's a pretty good chance that you're activated and checked out, right? When you're in survival mode, you're just trying to get through. You're not like sitting in this like deep awareness of who you are. You're just more like, I gotta like grin and bear it. It's almost like you're gripping. And there are many times in my life, especially in my 40s when I was like a new mom and I was in like the most challenging relationship, I was in survival mode. I was like, I got to just keep going. Let me get the coffee and, just still having the busyness, but what was interesting is as soon as I had my first daughter, I was like, okay, I gotta like cut some things out. I can't keep up all these like surfacey acquaintance friendships. Like I gotta like really, deepen in the ones that are important to me because I knew I couldn't keep up with everything. So I did have this awareness of cut out what doesn't serve, focus on, being a mom because that was just like everything to me. I was building a new business. And so if you find yourself in one of those patterns, I don't want you to judge yourself. I want you to start to ask yourself the deeper questions of why. Why are you still stuck in survival? Why are you so busy that you can't slow down? Okay, because it's important to know thyself. Then when you start to think about the gift of this gene key, it's called self-assuredness. And so self-assuredness is when you start to become aware of how you're showing up in your life and then how you're impacting and affecting others. And this really got me thinking about how I woke up one day. And I talk about this on my website. I've talked about it many times. But what I mean by that, and if you're like, what is she talking about? Like she wakes up every single morning. That's not what I'm talking about. Not that kind of waking up. I woke up from the Maya, the illusion of this life. And it came on the heels of a deep prayer. I was miserable. I was suffering. It was when my little girls were just like not even a year and 2.5 years, 2.5 years old, almost three. And I was trying to figure out at that time how I was going to improve my life. And I say this story so many times. I was outside watching my girls play. I was listening to this podcast, and I remember her saying, "Well, if you don't like your life, there's a pretty good chance that you don't realize that you created it. Like you created your life as it is." And I was like, what the fuck is this girl talking about? Like, what do you mean I created this? And because my life was so chaotic, I was so wide. Like there's just so much going on. I was dealing with a very challenging relationship and I was blaming him because he was alcoholic and he was emotionally very challenging to be with. And so I was like my friend Heather said the other day, I had the blame guns out. And so I was just like, you are the problem. Why are you, why do I have to deal with you? Not even realizing I was complicit in choosing all this. And I talk about this so much, but if you find yourself in a relationship and you're wondering why that person's the problem and why your life is effed right now, we got to change that narrative, right? It's okay to be unhappy with how your reality is unfolding. But every situation that you are in, some part of you is complicit in. Some part of you is choosing that, even if it's unconsciously. Maybe it's your subconscious programs, maybe it's your wounds. And I know that's really hard to hear, but that is the freaking truth. Okay. Now, I'm not saying if somebody goes and get in a, you know, something awful happens. I'm not talking about like somebody dying or a car crash. I'm not talking about that kind of stuff. I'm talking about like, okay, if you're in a relationship, if you're in a job and you don't like it, what part of you is choosing into it? So, anyways, hearing that woke me up. Like it was as if somebody dropped like the biggest ice bucket from the heavens down on me and was like, wake up, sister. Like, are you aware of how you've been showing up in your life? And that created a whole journey where I was like, I got to figure out what's happening. And how did I not see this? Like, how have I gone all this time and just now am learning that maybe I'm the freaking problem, right? And it's that saying, what's the common denominator? And it wasn't just me, but it was just everything, right? It was like the way I was relating to my life and all these things. And so there comes a moment when you wake up out of the illusion and you realize that you are a creator. You are connected to God, who's the creator, but you have that energy inside of you. And at any given moment, you can change your life, but you have to have awareness. You have to be like, how am I showing up? You have to be willing to observe yourself. And so that's the journey that started for me. And I hate to admit that that was only in the last, decade for me in my 40s. And I'm not saying that I didn't have awarenesses before. I've been on a spiritual path since I was in my 20s. Well, even since I was in high school, I have many, many moments of lucidity and understanding the deeper depths of things. But it was as if it was the first time I really saw myself. And I was like, wait a second. So we have a moment of waking up, and then you become aware of yourself, right? And then you might start to move into, and this is part of that gene key, the self-assuredness, is when you decide you want to be you want to like show up in an integral way in your life, because you're like, well, I care about how I care if I'm kind and have integrity and all those kinds of things. And so then you start to have awareness of your actions on other people. And one of the things about this is that how this particular gene keys can leave collateral damage in the past, and how they interact with other people because they didn't even realize it. And I had to like take this. I was listening to this gene key yesterday. I was like, oh my God, I was kind of a heartbreaker back in my day. And I was not very nice to certain guys that I dated and all these things. I was always nice to my friends for the most part, but like it's just like I was just really thinking about this. So, awareness of how you're showing up is so wildly important because if you are not aware, you cannot make any changes. If you are still asleep, please pray to God and be God or higher power universe. Please help me wake up to who I really am and how I'm showing up in my life. Ask that every day, and you will start to like the veil will be cleared. You'll start to see. And then ultimately, right, we want to be present. And present is this deep trust in life. It's believing and knowing that you're supported and becoming your future self, which is what I always talk about. It is not about bypassing and not feeling your feelings. It's not being superficial to your feelings. It's knowing that the brilliant future is created when you feel your feelings and when you're able to be with the totality. And right now, especially with everything that's going on in the collective, it's really important that you're able to sit with yourself. Otherwise, it's going to be such a daunting task to be plugged into what's happening right now because there's so much. And if you cannot regulate your own nervous system, if you haven't learned how to do that, get support with that. Work with somebody if you haven't worked through your trauma and right now, because there's so much that could trigger you. And of course, you can always book a 30-minute consult with me to see if I'm a good fit for you. But when you're becoming your future self, the way that you can move into becoming and having a different life, becoming a different person, having a different life is to be aware and then decide who is the future self version of you that's living out in that better timeline. Because of course it has to be better, right? Like, why else would you be motivated to get there if it's not better? It has to be. So don't make it so like it's just like blasé and just like, okay, it's like a little bit better. No, you got to make it like I like to get audacious. Maybe you're not in the mood for audacious. Maybe it just needs to be like shiny and fun and a lot better than what you're dealing with now. But it's the more evolved version of you that's living in that timeline. And once you decide what you want, for me, it was relationship. After being in that relationship and dealing with all the things, I was like, oh my God, I got to heal my relationship stuff. I want to become a different person. Who and what do I need to work on within myself so I don't keep choosing into the same things? There's a lot of work. I'm very much simplifying it. But in order to change, you have to make different choices. And this is where I see so many people get stuck. They're like, I'm aware that I have this pattern. I'm aware I talked to my therapist and my therapist told me that like I have this mommy daddy issue and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, kudos. Do you want a freaking award? Okay. Like, great. I'm glad you know. But what are you going to do about it? Like, seriously, like, what are you willing to do about it? Because if you're like, oh, yeah, like, cool, I have this. And every time you get triggered, well, it's because my mom was like, she did this to me. And then this is why I behave that way. And it's like, when are you going to get adulting and decide to change your life and stop blaming mommy and daddy and all the different circumstances that happened to you? Because part of the awareness is doing the deeper work, which I do with my clients to really understand their family constellation and why all the things happened, and ultimately to accept and forgive if they can. So definitely accept. And then you get to this point where you're like, okay, what do I need to do so that I'm not operating from that same wounding? I'm not showing up in the same ways, and I'm really ultimately present to what is. Because if you're present, you know what a present. Have you been around that person? Do you have that friend in your life or that colleague or whoever that's really present? I know when I'm really present, I am right now. When I'm really present, people can feel me. They're like, oh, I can feel your energy, Dawn. Or they can tell I'm intently like tuned into them. Because presence is such a calming vibration. It's so like it's luscious in some way. Everybody loves to be around a present person because you feel grounding energy from them. You're like, oh gosh, what's possible right now? It's like you're tracking. But how many times in your life have you said you want to change your life and you're just absent? You're so freaking checked out because you just can't bear another day doing the same thing. You can't bear the suffering that you're already going through. And I feel you and I don't judge and I send you so much love. But if you want it to move, if you want to get out of that, you have to apply your awareness to your present moment and pause when you're triggered and then decide what decision and how do I want to react differently than how I would in the past. And then you do that, those little micro tweaks, micro shifts every moment, like you get that opportunity and your life is going to look a lot different. You think you're not making that big of a difference, but like in a year, 2 years, everything starts to shift. So I'm going to leave you with that. I think that's plenty of info for today, but it's really just like, okay, change requires action and immersion, like really immersing yourself in the energetics of who you want to be, the becoming process. And if you love this becoming process, if you're like, yes, I want to know more, I am going to be doing something really special coming up soon. So get on my newsletter, stay tuned, and I'll be announcing that soon. But let me know in the comments who you're becoming. Like, what are you working on? And where are you in the phases? No judgment. Like I told you, I'm really honest. Like it was in my 40s that I woke up from what I was going through and what I was dealing with and really saw life in just an incredibly different way. And they say that that's kind of the age that around the 40s is when people are like, oh, what's happening? Because in our 20s and 30s, we're having so much fun and experimenting and just like in the flow and all that kind of stuff. So there is no timeline where you have to have it all figured out. It doesn't matter how old you are. At any given moment, you can change your life through your awareness, through your presence, and through deciding that you are committed to having a new life. So if you want to book a 30-minute consult, I'll put the details below. Definitely subscribe, share this video if you know it could help one of your friends, and sending you lots of love. And I'll see you next week. Take care.